So, what does online fame really do to a person? Today, we're going to dive into the massive gap between what we all think it's like and the strange, often lonely reality of being an influencer. And we're doing it based on a really raw, insider account.
And our source for this kicks things off with this super powerful line right here. It sets the stage immediately. You gotta understand, this isn't some academic paper. This is coming from someone who has actually lived it, who's been on both sides of public opinion and seen how the sausage gets made.
All right, so the story kicks off with this really vivid scene. The author's just driving down these dark, rainy highways, late at night, and he's taking calls from his followers on Discord. And right there, in those late-night chats, the whole problem just snaps into focus. This massive gap between how his followers see the world and what he knows to be real.
And this slide just lays it all out, doesn't it? On one side, you have his followers' view of the world. These grand conspiracies, secret groups controlling everything from the shadows. But the reality, what the author actually saw? It was, well, kind of boring. It was local business guys in meetings talking about intersection sizes and funding for playgrounds. They were just picking up the slack, handling community stuff that nobody else wanted to.
Okay, and this is where it gets really telling. The moment he tries to explain what's actually going on, bridge that gap with some simple facts, bam! He's a traitor, a shill. He's suddenly part of the very conspiracy he's trying to debunk. It just goes to show how locked in they are to their story, even over the word of the guy they claim to trust. So, this whole myth versus reality thing, it's not just about some secret groups pulling the strings. The author makes the point that the exact same thing happens with online celebrities. So he starts listing off all these well-known online figures, people he actually knew. And to the audience, these guys are like legends, right? Larger than life. But from his insider view, he cuts right through all that. They were just people, often kind of struggling, just trying to figure out this whole new digital world and ride the crazy wave of sudden fame.
And while this next point just nails it, the public sees this, this confident, intellectual giant. But the author, he sees something totally different. He sees a 50-year-old man trying his best to keep up, playing a game, the fame and controversy game, that's really meant for 20-year-olds. It's a view that just strips away all the myth and shows you the real person underneath.
So, okay, if they're just normal people, what's it actually like to be that famous? Well, he basically describes it as this lonely, psychological tightrope walk. And the personal cost? It's huge. And to explain it, he actually pulls out a quote from Machiavelli. He's saying, fame isn't some shiny trophy you get. Nope. It's more like this wild, chaotic force he calls fortune. It takes a certain kind of relentless energy to keep it under control. And if you can't, well, it's definitely going to control you. And he really breaks it down for us into 4 specific burdens that come with this fame. First, you've got the constant pressure to be on, to always be that persona. Then there's the temptation to just start taking other people's ideas because you're now the face of a movement. You've got the pain of watching friends turn on you for the tiniest mistake. And maybe the weirdest of all, you end up becoming a kind of dad to all these followers who look to you for everything. Okay, so now the author really raises the stakes. He basically says, look, as weird and tough as online fame is, it is nothing compared to what real, actual power feels like. He gives us a number to work with. 200,000. That's about the reach we're talking about with this kind of online celebrity. And yeah, that sounds like a lot of people, but he uses that number as a jumping-off point to get us to think on a totally different level.
So he wants us to forget the online world for a second. We're not talking likes and follows anymore. Imagine being a national figure, a person whose decisions literally affect millions of lives, someone who wields the real power of money and the state. And then he pushes it even further. The risk here isn't getting canceled on social media. It's a world where what you say or what you don't say could literally mean life or death for someone. And this is the final chilling part of his thought experiment. Imagine being at a table where a single wrong word, just one little slip-up, could get a man killed and nobody outside that room would ever even know. Think about it. This is a universe away from yelling at people on Discord. These are stakes his followers can't even begin to imagine. So after all this, after showing how little they seem to understand, what's the final take on these followers? It's actually really complex. He calls them necessary children. And the reason why is pretty fascinating.
And man, the analogy he uses is perfect. He says they're like WWE fans in the stands. They are completely into the show. They cheer for the good guys. They get genuinely upset when their hero turns bad.
but they have zero idea what's really going on behind the curtain. They just don't get the real business or the real stakes. What it all boils down to is a misunderstanding of one key idea: authority. It's a word they kind of shrink from, because deep down, they know real authority comes with real responsibility. And that's a heavy weight they just don't want to carry themselves. But here's the big twist, the paradox of it all. Even with all their misunderstandings, he says they have a super important job to do. He lays out two futures. On one hand, you have this sterile, corporate future of total control. And on the other, you have this chaotic, messy crowd. And their job is to be the defense against that control, to scream against tyranny, to question everything, even if their reasons are a little off. And that brings us to the final, haunting question he leaves us with. He's clear, we absolutely need people who question everything. But that creates this huge dilemma, right? What happens when the very people we're counting on to challenge power don't really understand how power or fame or the world itself actually works? It's a paradox that really hits at the heart of where we are right now.